Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Grown A Geeks. We are here following our recent episode 6 spoiler talk. Had some really good information come out in the current episode, in the most recent episode, and we kind of got an opportunity to get into it, dive into it. Joining me today, we have two of our admins. Brent is here with us, visiting us from the page there. Gag on These Balls host. He and Tony take care of all of that discussion on our sports topics. And we've actually launched a page recently specifically dedicated to the sports aspect of the Gag on These Balls podcast and the Sports Network. And it is actually Gag Sports Network.
It sounds so much classier and it's so much easier to say. Like, Gag on These Balls is a perfect entity for the show and the way in which we present things. But Gag Sports Network is a much more professional take on what we do for Grown A Geeks.
And it still gets to handle and focus in on a lot of the sports talk, the conversations and things like that, because we had to talk about it. And a lot of the really big sports fans, in my opinion, are geeks. They don't realize they're geeks, but you know, when you wear a team jersey and the hat and you got all the memorabilia and such, you know what? That's cosplay. That's cosplay.
Sports cosplay, and you're literally just buying it. You're pretending you're part of that universe because I'm a blah 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 fan.
Right.
It's literally the same thing as riding with a character. Like the way
people know the stats and know the characters and what team and follow. If you have a favorite character or a favorite group, if you're just, if you're Marvel, DC, that could be like if you're like, you have the NFC and the AFC. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways it relates. And so we appreciate all of our sports geeks being a part, and we have a home for you now, Gag Sports Network. Joining us as well, since I'm here, I'm Sam, and we've got Brent. Joining us also is one of our Marvel heads here. We got Will Parker. He's with us again. You can pretty much expect the three of us to be on anything, talking about anything interesting.
You put up an interesting topic and be like, look, we need to sit down. We need the people to know our thoughts.
This is what we do.
This is exactly what we do. And the funny thing is like, I've known Will for so long. We've been having these conversations pretty much ever since we've known each other. So this is nothing new for us, and we go back and forth and get into it, and we learn a lot. And, these are some very knowledgeable people, and so it's good to kind of go through some things with them. I, of course, am Sam. I'm the host. On today's show, we're going to continue with the rotating hosts. I think our last show we had Jeff, who came on, and he was able to host for us, and we've had some other times where, Tony's hosted, Denisha's hosted, etc. So
can we just say how fabulous a job that Jeff did? Like, that was from top to bottom, mate.
Yeah, that was. We had so much to unpack. It was really good having that structure in place. Be warned, that structure's not in place today. Just saying, it's not here today. We're gonna try. We'll try to not ramble too much, but expect some things, because today's special episode is going to be all about our theories. We are 6 episodes in of the 9-episode show Wandavision, and there's it's been a very polarizing first 2 episodes. Some people still very set in their feelings on the first 2 episodes. Okay, fine. We are 6 episodes in, and now that we are where we are, we have a lot of things happening. This is a spoiler conversation, so if you have not watched through episode 6, now would be the time to pause this podcast, pause this show, go watch, and then come back and you can be a part and you can see what we think is going to happen. These are just some hypothetical predictions. And this was going to be the launch of one of our new series where we're going to do something called Hypothetical, where we deep dive the what ifs and the possibilities. And this is actually a really good way to kind of get a loose format for what it is, because we have a couple of theories of what could be, some things that are coming up and moving forward. Will has been our resident red string for this show. Of course, everybody can picture the Charlie Day meme with the red string connecting all the images on the board.
My boy from Horrible Bosses.
But he's got a group of theories available. I was going down that path, and episode 6 kind of changed the way I'm watching the show now. Saw some things there, and it got me to thinking about some stuff. And of course, I hopped on, started looking through some of the different comic series and the different people who are in the different comics, and got some cool stuff. So I've got some new theories. And so what we're going to touch on specifically, there are a couple of things that I would like to hit, and the way I would like to hit them would be maybe an overall, I think when we ended the last show, we talked about what our next episode questions were. But we did not want to touch on the larger overarching questions. And I think one of the biggest overarching questions, feel free to chime in here if I'm wrong, why is all of this happening? Who is controlling? Is there another way you want to word that question to fit a theory you may have?
There are so many theories out there that it's really hard to disagree, yay or nay, with that statement.
Right.
But that's probably the most accurate way you can just put it in a nice little bubble context.
Simple way to kind of get to it. Now, the top contenders, and my initial thought, and I haven't even really moved away from it, but I don't have anything to technically support it. I didn't. Last episode, there might be one or two. But the most common idea was that this is a House of M storyline, and as a result, Mephisto. We talked about Mephisto so many times that he is actually a character on the show in my mind. It is hard to pretend like he was not a part, and a lot of that comes from, again, that comic background, that comic knowledge, and knowing what happened in this series. Some of the different characters, of course, we have Billy and Tommy, and the way that they play in, tied directly to Mephisto. So the fact that we're seeing them, they are here, and even some of the things as far as like their autonomous behavior, they don't require Wanda to function, explains, or it would justify Mephisto being one of the theorized individuals.
Due to the two children being essentially fragments of Mephisto's essence from the comics, correct?
Correct. And so that was the first and easiest theory to come up with. Brent, you had an idea. There was somebody you wanted to mention recently.
The person that I wanted to touch on would fit as part of in larger overarchy, tying into what we have in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, would have been the person that originally in the first Doctor Strange, they went with Casilus and Dormammu as your two big bads overall. You can argue that the, what was her name? The elder, whatever, what was her name? One? The Ancient One. Sorry, I wanted to get that correct. The Ancient One could have been a villain as well due to how she acted throughout the show. But the villain that the original Doctor Strange director wanted was Nightmare. He's always been a diehard fan of what Nightmare represented in the comics and how he was portrayed. And he didn't find a way to accurately get the character in there. It felt like if you put in Nightmare with Dormammu and Casilus, everything just kind of falls apart. There's too much going on. You just like, this is an origin story. You're not trying to just, here you go, Spider-Man 3, figure it out. So he wants, Nightmare to be the main big bad for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness 2. And he has said that Nightmare will be a strong character represented throughout that movie. So what I'm saying is, since Wanda is such a key figure for that Multiverse of Madness,
that MOM,
which that tattoo would go and back up, because Will accurately pointed out that one went completely over my head. It wasn't even like a list of suggestions. It was
that one, right? That was such an awesome call right there. So I just wanted to give a shout out on that one.
Yeah, but with that, Nightmare would be the one pulling the strings along right now. But I believe they'll call in a bigger bad to kind of wrap things up in Shumagorath, because he is an overall bigger bad of a higher scale than both Nightmare and Mephisto, and could be essentially pulling some string to be like, hey, come work with me. We can get this, ship rolling. The Avengers are basically broken at this point in time, as they just literally finished Thanos. They're, like 3 weeks after Endgame, if our Halloween timeline holds true. Yeah. So they could be a little tired, a little worn out, a little beat up. Right on the heels of that, you have one of your strongest Avengers, because she literally single-handedly brought Thanos to the point. He's like, dude, nuke my army. This chick is whooping my ass. And nuked everything. So if they are able to take advantage of a vulnerable Wanda, Nightmare can come into play, start pulling some strings, and help Mephisto break down those walls of the multiverse, and to end up at the point where the multiverse of madness is a thing that Shumagorath can enter as needed.
Okay, I like that. And here you were thinking you had nothing to contribute. That was a very well thought out explanation. So I'm liking that. That's a really good theory. Will, just whatever you want to pick up, whatever you want to jump in on, let me know. I'm here for it.
All right. So I do like where you went, Brent. I really like where you went with that. And the thing is, I'm trying not to lock into anything specifically, but I'm pointing out all the little things that I see that could lead in various different directions. Again, I'm on the board, like nothing's pointing towards a single source yet, but there's several things. So in my head, freaking, I had my 3 major big bads and stuff like that it could be, which AIM was my initial, Mephisto, and Nightmare. Those are 3 that I'm still running with for that. With everything that we got with Mephisto, the certain things so that, like the devil's in the details and all that kind of stuff, those certain quotes so that definitely kind of lead the way for that. Seeing blotches color red and stuff like that, there's other things that kind of
unleash hell, demon spawn type of thing.
Well, with those and stuff like that, those kind of point towards Mephisto and towards Nightmare, because, and the thing is, I was thinking more Nightmare with those, because who specifically said that? Pietro said unleash hell, demon spawn. He said the kids need a father figure, which pointed towards Mephisto for me, and so at that in my head, so at that. And then he said, damn it, if Westview, New Jersey isn't charming as hell. So at that. So a lot of these key phrases so at that is like, the word play is very important to me, and so at that. And I think that, Mephisto is still on the table, and so at that. Him and Nightmare could be working together. Nightmare has had various encounters with different Marvel characters and stuff like that we've already come to know, particularly Loki, Hulk, and stuff like that. Freaking, like, one of the most recent storylines, he was messing with Loki. Hulk, he ended up, messing with Betty Ross and her dreams, and, Hulk ended up killing Nightmare at some point, so at that. Sharon Carter even helped take down Nightmare at one point in time. So it's like, there's different things that Nightmare can bring to the table as far as bouncing between everybody. But it also lets me know that other characters that we haven't seen yet can come in, like i.e. Ghost Rider. We've seen on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but freaking we haven't seen fully realized in the MCU and stuff like that. So I think now we're bridging that gap between like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, because we got references to stuff, but now that the shows are more canon to what's going on within the movie architecture and stuff like that, it's a lot more options and stuff like that to bring in more villains and heroes and stuff like that. So Mephisto and Nightmare, they're kind of hand in hand, bouncing around. Don't know which way they're going to go with that, but it was possible. And I want to circle back around to AIM, which was my first and initial, and stuff like that, which I haven't let go of. The hexagons and stuff like that. The hexagons all freaking point towards AIM's symbol, their culture, their beehive type culture and stuff like that. The beekeeper suit is another pointed reference and stuff like that. And that kind of led me to believe and stuff like that. And this is with a few theories and stuff like that that I actually discussed with my brother after he brought up a few articles. You got to remember that Hydra infiltrated Shield at one point.
Right.
So with Hayward, we know is on some shit right now, something like that. How do we know that he hasn't brought anything in, or Sword hasn't been compromised in some aspect and stuff like that? Because we know AIM has been around for a while. Iron Man 3 freaking was when we got more more talk of AIM, but AIM was around since before that. Because remember, Tony freaking shunned Killian and stuff like that.
I was about to say that ballroom conversation they had then was like, I think it was 10 years prior.
10 years prior. So AIM has been around.
He hadn't even become Iron Man. So 10 years before Tony Stark, or 10 years before the timeline of Iron Man 3 is when that takes place. And so, yeah, that just goes to show he had already started creating AIM well before that. And they had some pretty substantial advancements by the time Iron Man 3 came around.
Yeah.
So if they've continued running since Iron Man 3.
Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff to learn because they had the whole development of the extremist program and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, all that knowledge and stuff like that just doesn't go away because, you blow up a barge and stuff with a bunch of shipping containers and stuff on it. Like, that stuff is still around. When AIM was founded and stuff like that, people who were part of AIM, Baron von Strucker, who helped found AIM, and so that he's part of it. Graviton, MODOK, the Scientist Supreme, all of them are involved in AIM. That's a couple big names there that freaking can help carry AIM forward, even if all with Aldrich Killian being gone and so like that, and Strucker being eliminated. Like, you still got names that can keep moving that forward. And as we've seen from the Marvel Avengers game, it's like that freaking, it shows that AIM was still around freaking even when, MODOK was taken out. So it's like
they were one of the big entities to come in and pick up a lot of the pieces. Like when Hammer Industries failed to jump in and claim a lot of the rights to Stark Industries, Hammer couldn't do it. AIM did. AIM came in, bought up almost all of the properties, everything that was there, and so they actually have their hands on a lot of stuff. Would not surprise me if there was some sort of AIM plant inside Sword. Go with the same modus operandi as Hydra did with S.H.I.E.L.D. You know what I'm saying? It's Death Star 2.0, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this time maybe we cover up the exhaust port. You got to do something different. But ultimately, it was a good weapon. It was a planet destroyer. And when it's all said and done, the plan that Hydra put in place actually worked. You know what I'm saying? They were able to take down S.H.I.E.L.D. from the inside the way that they did it.
There's a couple points to, like, literally tack on yours that would literally help prove your theory, because Kevin Feige already came out and said there is not a single overall main big bad. That it was going to be a collective for this phase. There wasn't going to be like a big one. So Shumagorath for me could be taken out, or it could be on the table because he's part of a trio. And also to support that, with Hayward being so adamant about acquiring Vision and the technology that is within Vision's body, would fit exactly within AIM's MO, because they're trying to acquire everything that Stark had and created. And that was one of Tony's probably proudest accomplishments.
Yeah. So all of that sets up beautifully my new restructured theory. It's going to feel like a bit of a cop-out, but stay with me, because I got to do my little bit of world building. This is my episode 1-2 opening, okay? So just stick.
Grab your popcorn, sit down.
Like,
I'm here. I'm here with you.
This is my ball of yarn. Stay with me.
Hit me.
When my mind gets to operating on the way different things go, one of the key things that stood out about this show is that it's going to only be 9 episodes. There's no talk. Loki already has a season 2. They've not announced anything about a season 2 for this show. Marvel has done a fairly decent job up to this point of not really writing themselves in a corner directly and being able to retcon when necessary the information they need to in order for it to fit the narrative. I've never personally believed that little boy who had on the Iron Man outfit and was holding his arm up, that was ever supposed to be Peter Parker, but they're trying to say in the MCU, it is. Okay, fine. It's even kind of been proven that the way the timeline sets up, it doesn't work. But if that's what they say it is, hey, we're talking about comic book movies, so be it. I'm not going to nitpick and be like, it can't be because he wasn't the actor who played that person. We're not doing all that. That's who it was. That's what it was. Cool. Now, we got 9 episodes, and we're already at episode 6. And thus far, they have not given us anything other than it is Wanda. They are pointing everything to her. And the only time we get that relief from it being her is those moments where she can't remember how she got there, why she's there, how it happened. However, I've watched a couple of the little Easter egg videos. I watched a couple of theory videos. And one theory that seems to be continuously supported in my mind is there is no big bad. There is no team behind this. It is just Wanda. This WandaVision show, remember I was asking, for those of you who haven't, go back and check our last video when we do our episode 6 cover. One of the big questions that I had that I wanted to pose to the group was, did you all believe that the Hex bubble stopped when she opened her eyes? Because we know that initially she's talking to Billy. She's like, I need you to focus. Where's your father? Okay, cool. She throws her arms out. Everybody freezes. And she like stops and she concentrates. And that bubble starts to expand. As that bubble expands, it encompasses everything in its path, changing everything to a time appropriate figment of her expectation. I don't like saying imagination because none of this is created out of thin air. She's actually rematerializing everything that's there. That was the whole Kevlar pants, 1970s jumpsuit. So it's a figment of her expectation. Everything is being changed. The agents get turned into clowns. Darcy just got sucked up. We know that she's moving this out to try to save Vision because Vision, when he walked outside of the Hex, started to fall apart. Now, I thought it was very interesting that, first off, it looked like the Hex was trying to pull him back in. It was not allowing him really to go out. And I could not figure for the life of me why that couldn't go out. Why couldn't he go out? Since he seems to be completely free and autonomous and he can do what he wants. When she put Monica Rambeau out, Monica came out and she was out. But as Vision,
one quick push, gone.
But as Vision is trying to get out actively, he can't. He's being drawn back in. So that got me to thinking about the connection. And it seems that, I wanted them to be more connected than they were previously when we were in the MCU still, because, they have this connection with each other because of the Mind Stone. Right down to she can activate his Mind Stone powers. So she can't tell that he's lying to her when he says he's going on patrol. She basically, to fast forward through a lot of examples, Vision can only exist inside this bubble. The last time
he is dead.
Because he is dead. The last time we saw Vision, he was in pieces on the table. She came in, she collected those pieces. Now, nothing against women's capabilities. Don't want to sound misogynistic. But Wanda didn't put him back together. You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't have that technology, that capability, that know-how to put him back together, other than her desire for him to be a solid piece. So, we all suspect that somebody could be enhancing her powers. And you know what? That could be the case. And maybe that's where Mephisto or Nightmare, or who was the last person you mentioned?
Shumagorath.
That could be where these people come in. However, she's not just like this weak-willed individual. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it has to be somebody who would be capable of properly manipulating her by blinding her.
Monkey's paw deal.
And so I definitely think that the Mephisto angle holds a certain bit of weight. It would just have to be done in a way that she was not aware it happened. She came in, she took the body, he, boom, snapped his fingers, and maybe he mind controlled her momentarily, built this town, and then handed it to her without, you know what I'm saying, without saying anything. Because she doesn't remember how it started. She just knows that they're there. Vision's actually not alive. She just has this body, this corpse. Quicksilver is dead. The moment she stops focusing on what she wants, she has to see things for what they are. And she sees her brother's bloody corpse and the bullet holes and stuff, and he's, ghostly colored and stuff like that.
Why was she keeping his corpse? That's what
Well, here's the thing. His corpse was delivered. Whoever this mysterious stranger is. Because we got a long time before we get to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We're about to be in episodes 7, 8, 9. That's it. We got 3 episodes.
That's sad to say.
You know what I'm saying? And Doctor Strange comes out next year. There is no way in the world they're expecting us to sit on this question without getting some information between now and then. Now, you bring into play even that what you just sent a moment ago, believe it or not.
Loki and the Eternals could help push along as well as Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi could push it along. Loki could push it along. Because ultimately,
even Winter Soldier could push it along. Everything can push it in some direction.
Anything could push it moving forward. Now, the only thing I don't think is really going to affect it is going to be the what ifs. I don't think the what ifs, because those are kind of one-off stories. And the whole point of what ifs is those are in and of themselves hypothetical situations. So I don't think they're going to push anything. Miss Marvel, of course, ties back into what you were saying, Will, about AIM being a big part.
It pushes towards that Young Avengers that looks like they're trying to go that direction.
Now, if we know we got the Multiverse of Madness, the only other person we know that would have traveled or would have had the opportunity or even a reason or the capability to travel between multiverses up to this point would be Loki. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I don't foresee, just based on, see, that's again where my predictions, I analyze what I've seen. From the trailer that they've shown, I don't see anything in there that's going to indicate
some sort of magical entity moving things along.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, nothing magical moving anything along, but more importantly, nothing that is going to involve a multiverse scenario. It's not to say that there won't be a multiverse scenario. There always could be. But I think they've tapped in about as much as they're going to do. So I think that their story is just going to set up phase 4. Like, they're going to set up what's next for Marvel. And, of course, now that we have 2 of the big characters, because they're taking some people from back burner, kind of bringing them to the forefront. And one of the things that Marvel, the MCU specifically, has done very well is bring these obscure characters and make them more important and present them well. Nobody has to wonder whether or not we're getting the Fantastic Four. Like, we know we're getting the Fantastic Four. it would be a little odd to try to present Reed Richards as the engineer when we won't see anything else from him minimum a year. You see what I'm saying?
Unless he has some obscure cameo somewhere else.
But again, when you look at the list, and that's to say also, if that list is to be trusted, when you look at the way that they are building their world and the timeline in which they're doing what they're doing, the only thing that really stands out or sticks out of place to me is Black Widow, because I don't think there's anything. Obviously, there's nothing that takes place in Black Widow that's going to have a major effect on these other things, unless they do like a full-on Captain Marvel and we just have to like displace our timeline and we're getting the explanation after the fact. They haven't said anything about having to change anything. It looks like it's just sitting there waiting to press play. So if that's the case, then it's like that's going to be a standalone one-off. Kudos to her. She deserved it. Should have had it a long time ago. But hey, finally it's on the way. That engineer that's coming in is going to be another obscure character who fits the bill, is fully capable, and would allow them to continue bringing in that space element. Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel is fully connected to Monica Rambeau.
She is.
He is more than capable of being the individual who he could be, that aerospace engineer. And given his ultimate power set, when it's all said and done, he becomes somebody that you can add into the MCU, whether it be the television version or the cinematic version. You could bring him in, and it would be perfect.
Yeah, you gotta remember, because I brought Blue Marvel up back when we were talking about Black Panther 2 and then bringing in Namor, because him and Namor have an accord or sort of that, where he has his base underwater and all that kind of stuff. So Blue Marvel's been in the picture for a while as a possibility. So it'd be interesting if they do bring him forward at this juncture, because Black Panther 2 is on the horizon.
There you go. So you bring in this person, you know what I'm saying? He and shout out to my boys, because Blue Marvel started off as a Marine.
Rah.
You know what I'm saying? Let's get it out there. He was a Marine.
Rah.
And because of that, you know what I'm saying, he's one of those people that, like, whenever people talk about, like, when we think of the smartest people in the Marvel universe, he ends up coming in like third, fourth. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's up there. But we forget that he's up there because, of course, the very first people, of course, that come to mind are your Reed Richards,
Professor X, and then Black Panther's also up there as well, right? He's also extremely intelligent.
He's extremely intelligent, but he is not
like super geek genius type.
Yeah, he's not like a theoretical physicist. He doesn't have a Master of Science degree in electrical engineering from Cornell.
No,
you know
like I don't even
like,
put Professor X on that top 10 list. Like, he's not on there.
Professor X is smart because he can read your mind, not because he himself is intelligent like that. And because of his power set, the perfect accomplice, if you will, to someone like Monica Rambeau. It's just, it would be ideal. You bring him in. You could
have him enter the bubble, gain his powers from either entering or leaving, and then you good.
I mean, it would definitely be something along those lines, but you know, it's just as simple to possibly have him, you know, dealing with some other stuff at the same time because he's working on, antimatter and stuff like that. And depending on the timeline, you know what I'm saying, it could be one of those things like, I don't know when the Falcon and Winter Soldier story is going to take place, but
Will Strings just got.
If the Falcon and Winter Soldier story takes place, or given his connection to either from the comic story, his connection to Shumagorath, Blue Marvel has a direct connection to him.
Yes, he does.
He does. He's also one of those characters that is connected to Namor, Black Panther, much as mentioned. So it's one of those scenarios where I think we're going to find we're going to get more questions before we get any answers. So ultimately, the overall theory is that we are not going to find out in these 9 episodes who this person or who this group is.
Like, the best we'll get is like a shadowy figure overlooking something, and that's it. Like, figure it out from there.
The best we'll get is a shadowy figure. We may get a teaser and see some fire. You know what I'm saying?
Kind of like how Thanos was like at the end of the Avengers swivel chair,
right.
like, fine,
because,
I'll do it myself.
I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one that is still watching all of the credits all the way to the end every time.
No, definitely not.
And that's how I started coming up with some of these other parts because, of course, you see, thanks to the way Disney Plus has their credits set up, after the credits roll for the television show, it then kicks over and it starts showing the voice cast for the voiceover work. And because they have to list anybody whose voice is actually on the show because someone had to re-say that part, boom, you can start seeing some other stuff. Yeah, I think ultimately what we're going to have is by the end of this series, it's all still going to just be Wanda. And Brent, when you talked about who the connection in the Doctor Strange movie was going to be, what if Wanda's the big bad for Doctor Strange?
That would be a plot twist in of itself, but that would play out perfectly because her powers versus Doctor Strange's power set would be entertaining as hell to watch.
I'd love it.
Well, here's the crazy thing about it. All they've said is that she's in the movie.
Yeah.
They haven't said that she'll be partnering up with Doctor Strange.
Or aiding or any of that. It's just like, she'll be in it. Like, what does that tell us? Nothing.
Again, think back. Did the bubble stop when she opened her eyes? Now, we know, the comic heads know, that if Wanda wants something, it happens. She can affect reality. She can create a new reality. We also know that those things that are further away from her are not necessarily affected the same way. We saw that with the people who were near her. They're moving, talking, laughing, doing their trick-or-treating and whatnot. But the people who are at the edge of town, they're not moving at all.
Like Will was eloquently putting it, basically everyone around her reacts to her character. All the NPCs do what she wants when she's nearby. But when she's gone, the NPCs don't do jack.
Now, if you have that bubble, what if that bubble burst out across the planet? It would get weaker and weaker the further and further it goes out. So really only the things that are in the immediate vicinity might be the things that are changed. But just like they could read the power signature from the snap, from Earth, they could see the power signature however many light years away. So that's obviously a lot of power. We've already agreed that she's got her power from the Mind Stone, and there's some arguments that can even be made that she herself is a human Infinity Gauntlet. She's exhibited powers from every aspect of all of the stones. They talk about the CBDs, or not the CBDs, or the cosmic, whatever radiation.
Mm-hmm. I got notes somewhere now.
I can't remember that word, but it's the CDRs. Basically, that energy coming from the Big Bang is the same energy they're reading right here at this bubble. So if you're talking right there, you take two words that mean a lot in anything Marvel: cosmic radiation.
A CMDR. That was
CMDR. Everybody in Marvel who has powers either came from cosmic or radiation. And then you have mutants. And later on, we get Inhumans. We know we got a Miss Marvel movie. We know we got a Miss Marvel TV show coming, which means that at some point they have to address the Inhuman factor. They've already done so in the game. So they bring it up in the show. Boom. There's our AIM connection. AIM could be being led by any one of these groups. It could be very simple that the only reason the director wants Vision is he wants to push Wanda. Why does he want to push Wanda? Because those are his orders.
From whatever mysterious entity he follows.
We already know that people are not above talking to the supernatural and whatnot. And honestly, we don't know what it took to keep the lights on. We don't know
what done a really dark deal of his own.
We don't know exactly. We don't know what kind of deal he made. Because
he could have been like Quesalis, who was like, "Hey, Dormammu, hook me up. I need some powers, like right now."
Everything that this man is seeing should have him, just based on what SWORD stands for. Hayward should have an entirely different approach to all of this. But he's got to push. He's got to push her because that's what is supposed to happen. Now, what wasn't supposed to happen is Monica Rambeau wasn't supposed to get powers. That wasn't part of the plan. You know what I'm saying? So that's a side effect. The fact that you can see the bullets in Quicksilver, none of this is actually real per se. I'm air quoting when I say real. We know it's all a figment of her expectation and that this created place only exists in her mind, but it's really all just an illusion, even to her. She thought that she was controlling certain things, and we're going to find out that she ain't in control of none of it.
Because Agnes is broken out, Herb's broken out, Vision's broken out, the kids have broken out. I mean, there's a lot more people that are completely autonomous from anything she's doing, and she's like, why is my perfect little world falling apart? Because, I mean, Pietro's out there doing whatever the hell he pleases, and she's got no say over it. And she apparently summoned him, because all he said was, I heard your voice, and I came.
Pietro probably didn't get to save enough people in Age of Ultron to be redeemed for the bad things he was doing prior to that. So it is likely that when he no longer possessed a body because it was full of holes, that his spirit, his essence, his soul, his whatever, went somewhere else. Now, if someone had access to a multiverse and maybe access to a soul, the only person that would be Mephisto at this point, who could reach across, grab this, put these two things together, and throw it out that way. Oh, crap, we need some kids. Quick, give me some kids. Boom. They actually messed up, and I believe, and see, and of course, I was curious if they were going to do anything with Simon Williams, because Vision actually shares, like his essentially his soul personality, his brainwave readings. They're based on Wonder Man, Simon Williams. at one point he was cast and he was on posters and things like that, and they had Nathan Fillion was going to play him, and it was going to be fantastic, and of course all that ended up getting cut, so none of that happened. But having Simon Williams come in, of course, would have provided just a little more to support like this whole House of M storyline. And basically when everybody decided that they had to stop Wanda, they pulled in people from everywhere to stop Wanda. You literally had the Avengers and the X-Men and other heroes who were just independent heroes all kind of standing around talking like, so y'all really want to just go kill her? That's what we're trying to do? And some people like, hey, sometimes you got to kill people. And then, of course, you got folk like, my boy Captain America. No, there's always a way. Like, nah, bro, sometimes you got to let him go. This is Wolverine and Cap literally going back and forth about, like, sometimes you just got to put him down. And Cap's like, no, there's always a way to save somebody. Wolverine's like, okay, bro, sometimes you got to put him down. Cap's like, there's always a way.
Punisher versus Captain America.
Right, like, we're not finna have this conversation, dude. Like, it is what it is. But they literally were trying to make this decision, decide what they wanted to do. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is where we're going to get more into our multiverse of madness. At the end of this series, Wanda is going to, like, fully snap. And she will be a villain by the end of the series. Having her as a villain by the end of the series supports everything that's coming after up until we get to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. In that time, you can introduce all these other characters. You can bring all these other people in. I mean, even the fact that you have a Hawkeye show. You know what I'm saying? You do Falcon and Winter Soldier. By the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, you could introduce whoever else you wanted to introduce at that point.
It goes to Loki right after that. Or does it go Black Widow, then Loki?
It goes Black Widow, then Loki. But then, since Loki comes out after that, you know what I'm saying? Loki's going to be doing his own Loki thing, which I don't necessarily think that one's going to tie in as much other than to let us see some of the characters we're talking about. I think Loki's going to actually interact with people like Nightmare, people like Mephisto.
He's going to help push small stories along for a bigger picture. Because, I mean,
so
he even has his own second season already. No one else has that.
You've got to water these seeds that are being planted. And because of all the different Easter eggs and the different things that we're hearing, the different things that we're seeing in this show, they want us to suspect, believe, and think that it's any one of these people. My theory, it's none of these people at this time. By the end of the series, we're not going to have an answer as to who's involved, who's guilty, who the big bad is. It's all going to fall on Wanda. And ultimately, it's going to be Wanda, I won't say destroying the town and leaving, but I think, and again, hate to do it, that scene from the trailer where we see her like in the street flying off, I feel like that's an episode 9 scene where she's like, to hell with this, get away from me. Everybody gets thrown back and she looks around. The town is basically like not there. And she just like flies off. Roll credits.
So basically, an added addendum to your theory would be basically, let's just say whoever's pulling the strings or whoever she did the deal with basically breaks Wanda to the point that whoever this entity, being, whatever is powerful enough to take possession of her and just wreak havoc. But or are you just saying that she's just by herself?
He can't necessarily take possession of her. He can psychically, like, you know that thing that she did where she like plants, she like did the little thing like this to Tony, and then all of a sudden he was in a different place and saw the Avengers and that kind of stuff, and saw everybody laying
like
down.
where she messed with Hulk, and then Hulkbuster had to be taken out.
It's that kind of thing that's happening to her. At best, I don't think anybody is possessing her. And if there was, it would be her possessing herself. She's had a psychotic break prior to this. And, you know, when she went in and smashed the windows at Shield or at Sword, and she left and she had Vision's body, she went into a field somewhere. She was crying. She was hurt. She was sad. Wake up in Westview.
So she's about to have her Star-Lord moment, but she's way more powerful than Star-Lord. Star-Lord snapped due to his traumatic experience on Thanos. And now she's about to snap because of everything that Thanos basically did to her with Vision, and then everything she had to go through being an orphan, being experimented on, Pietro, the whole 9 yards.
I mean, she had a rough life before she finally started to find some peace. And I feel like all of the little things that we've seen early on, you know, like if you take all the commercials in place, you know what I'm saying? She's still thinking about the Lagos incident. The one girl, Dottie, cuts her hand. Blood. I'm still sticking blood on her hands. You know what I'm saying? She's still holding the guilt of those people that died. The Sokovia Accords are because of her. You know what I'm saying? That type of stuff. All of that's weighing on her. Ultimately, this town was created through her powers. I am certain that she was probably manipulated to some degree. But ultimately, we're looking to try to figure out who's doing this. It's her doing it. Now, whether or not she's fully aware that she's doing it or she's consciously trying to do it, she ain't stopping it.
No, because she's had plenty of chances to be like, look, just walk away, Wanda. Won't do it.
Because this is the only place where she's finding her happiness. So, Brent, I'm going to use Lord of the Rings for you here. The Precious is Vision, and she knows about the Precious, but she's also going to do whatever she has to do to protect the Precious.
She went full Smeagol. Okay, I can understand it.
So she is like Golem when it comes to something happening to Vision. Smeagol once he's there and he's with her.
He's like, hey, we're still kind of good, but why are you running the show?
In this fantasy world and be happy, that's all she would want to do. And that's what she would do. And she would go through her sitcom life and everything would be great. But she can't do that. And these people are not going to let her do that. And because they're not going to let her do that, she's going to retaliate. And the moment she does that, it becomes a fight with Wanda. As soon as it's a fight with Wanda, you're going to lose.
I mean, she basically bodied up Thanos pretty good. But Will, you had a reaction earlier. I want to hear where your theory was going with that. You had like a huzzah.
This was all right. So I'm playing around with different things like that. Everything Sam said, so that I love where you're going with it. It's so fun. This could be. It could, no matter what it turns out to be, whether it's pieces of our theories, somebody's whole theory, whatever the case be, it's going to be a fun ride no matter what it is. So I'm thankful for that because that's all I really want. I can give a shit less whether I'm right or wrong. I just want to enjoy the ride. But when it comes down to it, so that like I remember that the scene you were talking about and stuff like that. In that same scene, so that freaking like I feel like when everything comes to a head and stuff like that, freaking something's gonna click between her because she's about to bring Vision back into the bubble, and we don't know what's gonna happen with him. Something's gonna click. They're gonna come to a head, and either something's gonna happen to where they're gonna go at it, or they're gonna get on the same page and stuff like that. And whatever happens there is gonna kind of set up the tone for the next, the final 2 episodes. So that as far as how they handle it. But my aha moment, when you're talking about freaking, bringing in freaking the engineer and stuff like that, and a few other things stuff we're talking about, and we're talking about the smartest people. Cause I was sitting there thinking about, I was like, okay, the smartest person in the Marvel universe right now is like a 10, 12-year-old little girl, and stuff like that. All right, she's the smartest person in the Marvel universe.
Moon Girl.
So
Yep.
yeah, Lunella. So at that. So with that being said, so that freaking with everybody, and I know freaking Black Panther does make the list at number 10. Um, somebody who's on the list with that freaking who I've mentioned before, but not during this whole set, which was again setting up for the Young Avengers and so at that. And that's we've already met the mother of one, which is Helen Cho, Amadeus Cho,
Amadeus Cho.
who is one of the top 10 smartest people in freaking Marvel. And so at that. So he's not too far off. And when I was thinking about Amadeus Cho, I was thinking about Doctor, I was like, okay, well, then we've also got freaking, if they want to bring in, maybe it's not a new person that they're bringing in, maybe it's an old person they're bringing in. What if they're bringing in freaking, Hank Pym? And so at that, as far as a context, I know it's not as exciting and stuff like that, but again, it sets the stage for, who is on that genius freaking caliber intellect, so that can deal with the stuff with, time travel and freaking cosmic radiation and all this other stuff. And like, okay, well, he fits the bill, and so that he's dealt with freaking, a lot of stuff like that. Of course, Reed Richards and all of them, and so that you can bring them in now, so that. But if we're not getting anything for a while, we don't even have castings at this point, and so that. It'd either be a surprise casting if they brought in freaking, Reed Richards, so that, or they're going to bring in something that they've already alluded to that we may have missed. But either way, again, the AHA goes real back to setting up the Young Avengers with that. We've already got Miss Marvel cast. We've seen Speed and Wiccan, and so at that. I'm pretty sure that freaking when it comes down to it, they'll probably age them up some more to have them in, more adult freaking fighting range, or probably like something more
18-21 ish.
Yeah, something going teenager up somewhere in that realm and stuff like that. Iron Lad is a question mark because we're not sure. That's just an assumption at this point and stuff like that. We've already seen Stature. Well, we've seen Cassie. That's what that. We know that she becomes Stature at some point. Whether they do it in the MCU or not remains to be seen. We know Kate Bishop is a thing with Hawkeye's show, so at that.
Yeah.
So that's already 5. So at that. And if you count Amadeus Cho, which he hasn't been mentioned yet, but he's around, so that brings it to 6. If we go back to Guardians of the Galaxy, we talk about freaking, the Nova Corps.
Nova.
That sets up for Nova. The 7, like we've got options. They planted a lot of freaking seeds and stuff like that for us to bring this forward.
Now, see, I tried to think of, and keeping that in mind, because if you remember, one of the very first people I said was Riri Williams.
Yeah.
And fitting in with your Young Avengers. I also tried to think like
she would be the latest one to be involved at it.
Well, I tried to make a connection between Riri Williams and Monica Rambeau. Like, why would this person know that person?
Oh yeah, for connection between them two. So they wouldn't have a connection. So because she already, her comic book connection is already there with the hologram of Tony Stark that was showed in the helmet. Correct. Because that's how she first talks to Tony and stuff like that, and her issues with that freaking through the hologram stuff. So
well, and I'm just thinking like in terms of, has there been anything that I've seen up to this point that leads the possibility? Because the thing is, I was trying to think of like when she was like, I know the perfect person for this. Like it wasn't like she had to think about who could do it. She was like, oh yeah, I know the perfect person for it. So of course it's like, why would this older astronaut basically know this 15-year-old girl? If they could both be like, why does Tony Stark know Peter Parker? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only reason people could accept that Peter had to be a part of the Stark internship. You know what I'm saying? And that's like that's a pretty nifty little cover when you think about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, if it's Reed Richards, why would she know Reed Richards? What is his background to putting him in connection with her? Blue Marvel at least has the military background and the astronaut, the fact that they were both astronauts. I was about to make a word, astronautical. I think I like that word. I'm gonna use that word because they have the astronautical background. Yeah, it works. That would explain why she could know Blue Marvel. But as I try to go through and think, like, how would she know this person? How would she know that person? Looking at the timeline for the original Captain Marvel movie, the events that took place for the original Captain Marvel movie, it could be the older Hank Pym. He fits. But again, it sticks out of my mind to say it has to be somebody who's not just smart, but builds things. You know? And so it does kind of limit the field right there because Amadeus Cho, while he is without a doubt one of those like super intelligent people, he's one of those like he kind of has like a specific type of intelligence, you know what I'm saying? Because like technically Bruce Banner, for that matter, Bruce Banner is a genius, but they even point out that like his area of expertise is this, you know what I'm saying? Whereas like Victor Von Doom, his area of expertise, you know, like he's one of those general geniuses. Reed Richards is one of those general geniuses, whereas like you could kind of see him doing this, that, and the other. Shuri's one of the first people that honestly comes to mind. And it's kind of like, I don't think she could text Shuri at the drop of a dime because there again, I just don't know that there would be a connection for Shuri, you know? And so it's like, I was starting to think like people who were in the military. And of course, that's really what made Blue Marvel jump out to me as being that individual. Plus the fact that Blue Marvel already has that background and that history and that romantic connection.
Yeah, I would say he would be definitely the top choice. Sort of that. Like I wouldn't freaking argue that at all. Sort of that. And I think it'd be a better fit, especially if they're talking about sending people back up into space later on and stuff like that. That would make sense to
Guardians 3.
So we see
and Thor: Love and Thunder that has Guardians on set. That keeps us in our space realm because again, I'm with you in thinking the Young Avengers, and that's where they're gonna get Nova.
God, I hope so, because they've been trying to drop that one for a while. Because they said they wanted Nova for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but they also couldn't find a spot for them. Because they have a lot of great characters, just trying to organically fit in these characters can be difficult. Marvel's been super good about placing people where they belong, so they don't want to rush things too early on where people won't be able to be like, oh, you mentioned this like 8 movies ago. Now it's relevant.
Right.
No, but no, I think I mean we've all got solid freaking foundations for where we're at and where it could go and stuff like that. It's more or less to see what they're gonna follow up with and how everything that, because again, I mean, whatever we get from this, I'm gonna take this, and granted, I'm gonna watch every other Marvel property starting off as a standalone, so like that. But you know me, as soon as I see a reference and stuff like that, I'm red stringing it and stuff like that. Don't be surprised if freaking, later on in March and stuff like that, y'all see all this taken down and I got strings all across the back trying to figure shit out. All right. It's probably gonna happen.
I'll judge lightly as long as it makes sense.
I am completely with you there because, I mean, honestly, if you go down, like even if you just did a quick list of the top 10 smartest, Beast is on that list.
Yeah.
And hey, hell of an Easter egg to put Hank McCoy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind of thing that And when you talk about being able to build and whatnot, he's one of those people, like you saw him working on the Blackbird, and so it's like, he's got those mechanical skills. Dude speaks like 10 languages, has a couple of PhDs. He's got like 6-7 different degrees. So while you have those people who are just smart for the sake of being smart, you also have those people who are specifically smart at doing this and specifically smart at doing that. Reed Richards, of course, fits the bill because we have the fantastic car and, some of the number of vehicles that they have. Plus, since we already know that there's cosmic energy in the area, and at some point they might have been the test pilots. I kind of alluded to that. And I still think that that's where we're going to see the Fantastic Four, that they're going to be those test pilots who returned from the blip. I think they're going to be like blipped in the middle, and the space shuttle wasn't moving, and now it's like they blipped back and they're still in the shuttle, thank God, and they fly home, and of course everybody has to like debrief them and unpack them, and then they start realizing that they had these powers because of all the cosmic radiation that took place while they were blipped.
It would be hilarious if they brought back Chris Evans as the Human Torch at some point. Just be like, here you go. Just like, hey, we did this too. Just for a weird Easter egg out there. But while we're on the subject anyway, anyone have any specific theories pertaining to how the mutants will be officially retconned in for the
this hex bubble continued extending after?
So Wanda's the mother of mutants is basically where you're going with that.
I think because that, in my opinion, ties in close enough to House of M, where she erased all the mutants. They are doing a nifty little like wink, wink, nod, nod, where she will be the reason that the mutants were created.
Will, you got something to add on?
I think freaking that. I mean, that's one of my same theories that I was looking at was she's going to create, because I think I talked about in one of the episodes about that yeah, the stone, she got her powers and stuff from the stone is what we've been told, stuff like that. But I never heard them say specifically. They said that they were the stone was used on them. So again, I didn't know if the stone activated latent powers in her and sort of that, gave her powers sort of that.
I remember you saying that.
So freaking, so all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of goes along with what Sam was saying, that she could be, the mother of all mutants with that. Another option, so I was looking at, is more or less a multiversal crash. You get to the point to where you have characters freaking that are in, an alternate universe who get pulled into our universe for whatever reason, which kind of makes sense because that's how Iron Lad and, Kang and stuff like that gets jumped around, thrown through universes, so to speak, so that before he lands at a particular spot, so that decides to stick around to try and stop, everything going on with there. So if another universe with that ends up, because again, multiverse of madness, something ends up colliding and so that they got to rescue people from one universe with that freaking transference of energy through the course of that freaking, say it is Shumagarath and so that, and he freaking comes in each planet and blows up, and freaking his freaking entrails go across the fucking planet and corrupt people or some shit. I don't fucking know. Like, it could be anything that they want to do, freaking as far as multiverse and stuff like that, to make it part where another multiverse so that brought it forward. I do think that no matter what they do, I do think that Wanda is going to be the catalyst in some way or shape or form. I'm just not sure if it's directly going to be her, or it's going to be a result of her actions and events caused to bring it about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like it'd be sort of disappointing in the sense that since Magneto's her dad, like, you'd have to retcon that whole area, and you'd be potentially missing out on such a character of that power. I wanted to say magnitude because it was there, but I didn't want to go too many dad jokes, but
well, I mean, Magneto's with that. I mean, it's not a character they can leave behind. So that, like, definitely is somebody that should be brought forward into the MCU. So at that, but again, with her being a Nexus being and her being the same across all multiverses, which is supposedly all how her story and stuff goes, then Magneto can still operate just the same and stuff like that.
Just pull him from the universe that you want.
He would just operate in lieu of having kids. He would operate basically. He would operate the same way he was operating before he had kids. So that because he didn't even know them like initially. But again, even with his kids, his ideals and stuff, his stuff never changed. Like Magneto was one of the most badass people of all time because he was so steadfast in what he believed for the mutants and stuff like that. So you can still have that character and stuff like that, and you can have Scarlet Witch have not much to do with him in that regards. So that you can even make a fun little joke in passing if you wanted and stuff like that, and leave it at that. Because
you're like glad that dude's not my dad, and then everyone's just
because as comic book fans, we all know and so that was going on, so we would get it. And again, that's just something that I'll go ahead on just based off a conversation we had earlier today. Everything in the MCU is not for everyone, and so like that, plain and simple. So like that, there's a lot of stuff in the MCU that's going to be geared towards the hardcore comic fans, so like that. And there's going to be stuff that's more freaking lighter, so like that, for the casual MCU watcher. And there's going to be stuff for kids. Like it's gonna run the gambit and stuff like that. So you gotta understand that freaking some of these things that freaking may go over your head and stuff like that. Freaking that's fine. It wasn't meant for you. It was meant for someone else. It's like that. I mean, just take it with a grain of salt, however they decide to run it. But you got to remember that with the MCU, I do not expect them to follow every storyline directly. Yeah. If you do, it's going to bug the shit out of me. I like the way they did in the Infinity Gauntlet, stuff like that. It was a new take on it. I loved it and stuff like that. Do I still like the original story? Yes, I love the shit out the original story, stuff like that. But I'm glad they did something different. So I want them to continue that trend, and I don't want people sitting there because I got into it with somebody about this or that, where it's like, oh, well, they're not doing it right because they're not following. Like, no, they're doing what they need to do to write the story the way that they wrote it. They're taking. That's why you call it source material. It's just pieces of whatever they wanted to take and change it how they wanted to. So it's like,
yeah,
we got to run.
Disney is like the master of adaptation. Ooh. I can't honestly name an original source that they have that they actually thought of that is their own original entity that is not a Pixar property. So basically, they've just adapted so many things.
The movies that come on their station and their TV series, they are actually listed as Disney originals. A lot of their big IP, they, and the reason we get these remakes and these live actions and stuff like that is so that they can retain the rights because they sit on them for so many years. And that's why you tend to see like stuff come out the vault and be digitally remastered so that they can sell you a new version of it and maintain the rights for another like 20, 30 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, absolutely. These adaptations, they're not directly connected to the comic books page by page, scene by scene. One, they can't be because they did something in this movie 10 movies ago that they can't do now because it's here, and even the way some of the stuff is set up, like they had Hank Pym, Hank Pym, when Michael Douglas played Hank Pym, they showed him way back as a younger man, and he was one of those people who was doing secret missions for S.H.I.E.L.D. back in the day. So they have to bring in Scott Lang, who is not the genius, just so that they can kind of justify and make it make sense why this character is doing this and doing that and why it's this person and not that person. So having those adaptations and, letting it stray just a little allows them to write a cohesive story, keep everything the way it's supposed to be, and make it make sense within their timeline. I'm going down my fingers here. Within their timeline, based on the stories they've already told, while leaving them room to tell more stories.
While we're talking about a cohesive show, do we feel that we've covered the theories that we need to touch on, or do we have bigger predictions?
No, I mean,
hierarchy?
No, I think it's good there as far as
I
because we're gonna do this more often, right? At the end of the season, we're gonna do this, right?
Oh yeah, at
And
the
we're
end
gonna
of the
do a whole
season,
bunch
we
more
have to see if
hypotheticals
we
with Jeffrey once we get him.
right. I
like,
mean, if
more
nothing else, I got to
available.
know if I was right. If they come back and say, "Oh, it was Mephisto the whole time," then I can be like, "Oh, damn, I was wrong." But I do, and if nothing else, I want to know because we got, you know what? Ooh, like in just a couple of days, we get to find out who the engineer is. We get to
Two
find out if
days.
that bubble stopped. I have to know what happened to Darcy.
Oh,
All this and more on the next episode of WandaVision. So that's what we're here for. But no, as far as theories, no, man. I mean, for me, the big thing, we're not gonna get the reveal in this series. They're saving that for something larger. I think Wanda will be the main villain at the beginning of Multiverse of Madness, and they are going to keep watering those seeds along the way between now and that movie coming out. And I think the most we might get is the
silhouette of another entity or person or being or
maybe,
what have
but
you.
I really think we're going to get a cosmic blast from Wanda that's going to shoot out the same way as the Infinity Gauntlet does, and that's going to be our introduction to the mutants.
All right, then I'll just rehash mine as you have rehashed yours, so we're all completely succinctly on record. Mine is Shumagorath pulling the strings of Mephisto and Nightmare. Take down that multiverse. Will, you want to wrap up yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think that freaking everything going forward from here and so like that is still just kind of we're in that waiting game and so like that. So
We're in the end game.
yep, I already gave my three again: Aim, Mephisto, and Nightmare and stuff like that. I'm still leaning more heavily towards Mephisto and Aim and so like that, with Nightmare being a piece and so like that. But again, not the overarching big bad, just kind of filtering things as they go along. So I want to see where it goes. I'm definitely see if we get to keep these young Avengers going. So with that, so
Yeah, I mean, this is great stuff to talk about, and I wish we'd done like a hypothetical pertaining to the Mandalorian, because me and Sam also had like a moment where we wanted to guess who that Jedi was, and we were both wrong.
Yeah.
Either way, it was a lot of fun
But
doing
you know
that
what's
show.
funny though? I look back and it wasn't so much that we were both wrong. We just thought that would be too on the nose and they wouldn't do that. That was actually our conversation. It was too on the nose. We didn't think they'd do that, and that was exactly what they did.
yeah.
And after seeing it, it was like, you know what? It kind of makes sense given the timeline. So, yeah, I guess so. He would technically be the most powerful Jedi at that time. Fine. I guess if you want to make sense.
I guess if we wanted to give Mark Hamill his respect thread finally.
You know what I'm saying?
As
If
the
you
last
want to
three
do it
movies
the
were
way
not
it's supposed to be done, why not? Yeah, you could easily do that, but why don't you do something and come out of left field, you know? All right. Well, that sounds like a show, and I am looking forward to finding out how right I am or how way off I was. We want to thank you for staying with us. If you actually have some ideas of your own, if you agree with any one of us, if you think that Will's got the right answer and that's the way they're going to go, then let us know. If you like AIM being the main villain, if you agree with the Nightmare and Mephisto possibility. If you like Gorath, and you think Brent's hit it on the head, and that he is actually manipulating both Mephisto and Nightmare to work with her and make Wanda do these things, press 3 now. We'll take call-in votes. We'll take call-in votes. And if you agree with me and think that they are just teasing all of this stuff because they're not going to give us anything in these next 3 episodes and make us wait and give us a little bit at a time, drip feed us until the movie comes out, then, jump on with me, go, yay, Sam, you were right. Or if you have your own theory, by all means, let us know. Leave it in the comments or click that QR code in the top left corner And find us on Facebook and make sure to join the group, Grown A Geeks. You can give your theory there. Look for the WandaVision spoiler thread. We ask that you leave it inside that thread. Once you come in, there'll be plenty to talk about, plenty to chit-chat, and you can give us all of your takes and opinions and let us know what you like. That QR code to the top right is going to take you to the YouTube channel where you can watch all of the previous WandaVision episodes. You can see the episode 1 and 2 starter episodes. We did episode 3, episode 4, and episode 5 recaps. We've also now covered episode 6. So check out our WandaVision playlist, as well as all the other nifty videos. You can find Brent doing all of his episodes of Gag on These Balls, where they've covered everything from NBA playoffs up to the Super Bowl, and I think currently they are covering the mock draft. Check me and Will out in all of our conversations that we've had over different things, admin chats, top fives, you name it, we're there, we talk about it. We appreciate you being with us here. We thank you. Make sure to like and subscribe, leave your comments, and we will catch you next time. Peace.